Actually, I'm coming from eBay. I am a UX designer in the London office here in eBay. And I just wanted to talk to you today, of course, about Hemingway on writing and also, about UX. So the story goes like this. A few months back, I was, reading about a Hemingway book, actually, on quotes. And that just displays quotes from Hemingway, actually. The book was put together by his publisher a few years after his death. So it was not like original content, it was just stuff that he put together and he amalgamated. So the book is about the practice of writing. And, while I was reading this book, I just realized that some of the quotes in there really talk to me as a designer. But first I would like to tell you about, the comparison between writing and UX. Why do I put them together? And I think they have similarities between them, and I would like to show them to you. So writing and UX are creative processes. Of course they are. We both require to think outside the box. We need to use our right side brain, actually. We need to think differently and be creative. Of course, we want to motivate our audience. What for writers is readers, for us UXers, it is users. So what we want to do is move our users to think, to imagine, to do something. And really, we want to be joyful. We want to be useful. We want to be helpful. So many things we want to be, of course. What we really want to do is to hope to improve the lives of the people that is going to get our products, writings, books, etc. And as Alan Bennett says, a book is a device to ignite the imagination. And I think we should aspire to do that. So I just want to go one day and say, this product, this service, this that I created, that I designed, it is really a device that ignites imagination. So we should aspire for that. But not only, similarities, in the way that we are doing things and we want to do, but also in how we have to deal with, what is around us. So writing and UX have to deal with the forces of business, of course. So what is the business goal? What is the objective that, this company has for this product that is coming out? What are the requirements? What are the steps that we need to follow to get to the end of, let's say, this service, to the release, or maybe to the product being released, of course. We need to negotiate the goals, the steps, and also the timelines. And I just want to point out that picture, because we've got there a couple of designers, and this is actually eBay people. We've got a couple of UXers there working with a bunch of product managers, and they are helping each other to define a good way to work together. And that is actually something that we really need to do day in and day out. Kind of like partner up with them. But I just want to point out also that writers have to do the same kind of thing. They have to deal with understanding the objectives of the business. His publisher wants to make this amount of books sold, money, influence, etc. The sales figures, also the style of presentation. Who is the people that I'm going to write for? As well as that, writing and UX have to deal with the particulars of technology. Of course, you've got over here a few developers discussing with me. I was just taking the photo on that instance. Discussing on the features of a product. And many times we have to have the healthy fight between limiting technology, limiting time, development time, only 2 points in this print for UX stories. And we need to keep a healthy balance between all of us. And, as I said, go together, negotiate, and work together. The interesting thing is that also writers have to deal with technology these days, and now more than ever. Because, as an example, you as a writer can now be your own publisher. You can go to Amazon, actually, and publish your book there. You are your own publisher. Or you need to think on how you tailor your content so it is consumable in your handheld device, or in an ebook reader, or in a tablet, not only in a physical book. And also, both writing and UX need to deal with the needs of people, of course. Writers focus on, the target audience. For example, it's not the same writing a book for a Scala developer than writing a book on barbecues for a mid-30s dad of 2 barbecue aficionado. So there are differences there, of course. They need to take care of the users. And us, we have to take care of the users, of course. So that image over there, that was taken last week. We were doing some ethnography research, actually. We were talking to people in their houses and really trying to understand how do they sell on eBay. And that is actually what we want to get to. Try to really understand our users and cater for them. So yes, we have a lot in common, both creative writers and UXers. And actually, I'm just going to talk on a couple of those examples, like secondary characters, which are not the main character in a novel or in a book or in a story. And for us UXers, those are the actual products or services and the proxy users. So the product obviously is going to be the secondary character. The main character is the user. But those proxy users is, for example, the customer service representatives. You need to think on them too, and they play in your story. Or, for example, the plot, which is from the beginning to the end of the book, the whole of the story. And that plot for us is the user lifecycle. That is the first time we touch a user in our service, in our product. And the last one, which is not the last one, and that should be continuing our relationship with the user. So let's talk about what Hemingway has to say about user experience. So first of all, I imagine that lots of people here are designers. Probably not so many are writers, and probably less are going to be writers and designers. So I would like to raise your hands. Who here is a writer and designer? Wow, okay. Who is a writer? Okay. And who is a writer? Sorry, who is a designer? Okay. So I think there is a lot of creative people here, actually. So I feel empowered to communicate to you and tell you my story, actually. So that's great. So the following quotes that I'm just going to show you are from this book called Ernest, Hemingway on Writing. It captures many quotes from Hemingway's in magazines, in newspapers, and other publications. That's what I was mentioning at the beginning. His editor kind of like tried to milk the cow some more, actually, after his death. And the interesting thing is that throughout his life, Hemingway talked a lot about writing as an art process, and also he talked about the process of writing himself and how he used the tools and what tools he used. So out of this, I selected just a few of them, a few quotes, a few nuggets of knowledge, but I am sure that there are some more. It's just for you to go and discover. So let's start with the beginning, actually. So all you have to do is write one true sentence. Write the truest sentence that you know. Okay, so to get started, write one sentence. So how do we translate this actually to our field, to UX, actually? Okay, find the truest sentence that you can. And probably you see where it's going to, actually. How do you know what you need to write? Find about the user needs, of course. So identify that one big problem, that one big thing that is bothering your user and that you need to tackle. But so how do we formulate that initial sentence? Of course, identifying the problem will require you going to the source. And of course, the source at the center is going to be the user. That is where the truth resides. But sometimes you don't have access to the user. So maybe you have to resort to research. Luckily enough, in eBay, we've got teams that dedicate themselves to just finding out about user needs and what are the things that are bothering them. Sometimes you don't have that. But that is not a problem, because you can go and rely on third parties. The customer service people that I was talking about before, these people deal with your users day in and day out. They know a lot about your users. They know what bothers them. They know what really moves them, what they like, what they don't about your service, and a lot of truthful insights. Well, if you don't have the capability to touch these people, you can still go to your clients or your stakeholders, because at the end of the day, they know, certain amount about the users they are trying to cater for. Sorry, just 1 second. But, that truth sometimes is not 100% true, of course, because they've got their way of looking at things. Like everybody else except the user. But, 50% of truth is better than no truth at all. Nevertheless, let's say that you don't have access to your stakeholders or to the clients. You still have yourself, because at the end of the day, we all are people. And you, your team, can work together and try to figure out, try to think, what is what we need to tackle about this user? And what are the issues that users have? So what is the next one? The best way is to read it all every day from the start. Then, each week, read it all from the start. So, stop and consider where you have been and what comes next. So, a few seconds ago I was talking about finding out the truth. Now is when you're going to go and say, let's validate the truth. So, validate as you go along. So, put something that you create in front of your users to clear out that knowledge that you maybe have or don't have. So it is going to help you in going through the right path, obviously. So in this image, actually, we've got some user testing sessions that we were doing recently, in which we used a couple of prototypes and validated some hypotheses that we thought were correct. Some of them were not, some of them were. But it really helped us, in guiding our process. So, what is the next one? Stop when you are going good and when you know what will happen next. If you do that every day, you will never be stuck. So, always stop for the day while you still know what will happen next. And this talked to us about planning your moves as a designer. So you can do a lot of planning at the beginning of your project, of your approach. You can just go and figure it out a bit as you go along, actually. We like to do a bit of planning at the beginning and also a bit of figuring out as we go along, actually. And that is part of what you see in this image, actually. A colleague and I were planning some sessions with with the stakeholders, and the business units to tackle some project that was coming. So how do we plan those moves as designers? And this talks about us, actually. And I think it's going to be also valuable for you. So we look at 3 levels, between strategic outlook and production. And we look at them as we go along, every day in and day out, actually. So the first one is the vision. That nebulous vision that is not very clear, but we have a true statement that is, the user needs this. And that is kind of like our, let's say, how you call it, guidelines. I can't remember the name, actually. So that is the long term. That is kind of like where we are going towards, actually. And what are the main use cases that we will solve in this product, in this project? What are the needs of the user, etc. We also have the kind of like midterm kind of like view. And that is the flows that are better outlined. When I mean flows, are those parts of the product that are self-contained. For example, when you're tackling the checkout process, when you're tackling the sign-up process, when you're doing order management, those are self-contained parts of your project, of your product, that you need to tackle individually, but they live in a whole, actually. And the last one are the actual components that will be produced by visual designers, by developers, and this represents the kind of like really short-term view of the product. So the forms, the interaction models, how they behave, how are they integrated in the product, how do you go through them. So, as I mentioned before, we always maintain a view on these 3 parts, 3 kind of like levels, of knowledge on a project, product, service. So what is the next one? I learned not to think about anything that I was writing from the time I stopped until I started again the next day. So never think about the story when you're not working on the story. And how does it touch to us, actually? Let your subconscious work on you. And now I'm going to ask you another question. Who here, actually, has ever been stuck at least once in the design, work progress, work life? I think you would be God if you are never ever been stuck, actually. So I tell you what I do, actually. Whenever I'm stuck, I just go and say, I'm just going to walk away and do something else. Because the subconscious, is going to continue working on me. So these aha moments that you have from time to time, one of the things that, really helps me on that is, in the mornings when I'm getting a shower, actually. That is the time when I'm most relaxed, and then when I get, that's right, that is how I solve it. Don't get me wrong, I don't take a shower every time I have a problem, of course. So, just work on it. Some people go away, some people go and smoke a cigarette, some people go and do a bit of running. Just walk away from it, because when you come back, your subconscious had done something on you, and you face the problem in a different light. Probably you're gonna not get it done, but at least you will have more insight. So what's the next one? After you learn to write, your whole object is to convey everything. Every sensation, sight, feeling, place, and emotion to the reader. So don't describe an emotion, make an emotion. So I'm just going to start showing you this because I think this is an interesting one. You would think, so what is emotional about eBay? Come on, it's a service that has been 20 years there, Okay. So this is Valid. This is a new service that we introduced in the US. So it allows people that don't really have much time, that have a lot of stuff at home, and they don't really know what to do with it. and put it in a box, send it to somebody to sell it. The thing is, these people that don't have much time, they're not going to go and look at all of the items, process them, put the ones they're going to sell, take nice images of those items, post them on eBay. Some of them are going to be sold, some others will not. Then the ones that are sold, package them, go to the post office, send them over, wait for the buyer to pay you. So we remove all of that, from your hands. So you put your items in a box, send it to a professional seller. He's going to take care of all of the images, everything. He's going to make a cut out of the sale, and you're much more likely to sell your items. So the ratio between, the effort that you need to make and reward that you get is really outweighed. So what we are creating here is this emotion. Selling is easy, actually. So how do we come to that? Because we went to see people, we went to understand the users and really understand what was their motivation, what were their needs, and really worked to get this done, and tackle their issues. Okay, so what is the next one? If you write with a pencil, you get 3 different sides at it. First, when you write it over. Then, when it is typed. And again, in the proof. So, to me, it feels like, this is about being sketchy. Don't go deep until you know where you want to go to, and be ready to change a lot. So yeah, be sketchy, Always leave your options open. Don't worry if you're going through the wrong direction, because you will be able to validate it later. But at least open up. So how do we unfold this sketchiness? So from working it out to actual fidelity, the product itself, as you evolve your design, you will use different tools. So this is what we are doing, actually. Initially, we start with sketching, as I mentioned to you, of course. We explore a lot of sketching out, always in paper, trying out different directions, a lot of drawing, etc., of course. And then we prototype. So prototyping with paper, or prototyping with paper kind of like electronically. I do my drawings, take the images, or scan them, put them in my computer, add some interaction to it, so I can go and show to users. And that actually will help you to understand, okay, so this is the right direction, this is not. This works, this doesn't. So it's starting to kind of like pulling you towards the right place. Also, we do wireframing. And notice that prototyping didn't move from there, because once we've got a direction, we're starting to wireframe, and we also prototype, and we also go and show users. Of course, they will help you to find out that this interaction doesn't work, this flow makes sense or doesn't, this is too complicated, etc., etc. And also with visual design. Once you're getting towards the end, where in theory you are going to have to make less and less changes, like in a funnel, actually, you still prototype and you still show to users. So then, the next one. It wasn't by accident that the Gettysburg Address was so short. I don't know if you are familiar with the Gettysburg Address. Probably the US people will be. So the Gettysburg Address is one of the most influential statements in American history. It was delivered by Abraham Lincoln a few months after the American Civil War finished. And the particulars on this address is that it was 271 words. Less than a quarter of a paper in these days, obviously. And it was given in less than 2.5 minutes. So basically, he went to the point. He didn't go around and blah, 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 blah. He just went right there where he had to go. So he was brief. So the best design is the less design possible. So make it less, but better. So definitely, less is more. You need to know when to stop adding stuff to your product, or even actually strip everything down, as what we did for the last year with the eBay applications for tablets and mobile phones. We just went to the drawing board, and said, forget about everything. Let's start from zero and only put in there actually what really needs to be there. And well, actually nowadays, if somebody comes and says, actually I want to put this extra banner, blah, 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 it's going to get a lot of resistance. Because the idea here is just getting it really tight, and really focused on the user need. So just to recap, actually, we went through seven nuggets, actually, of information from Mr. Hemingway. So find the true sentence that you can really understand what the user needs, actually. Validate as you go along. Test, test, test. Plan your moves as designer. So always maintain visibility on all of the levels, as you go along in the design process. Let your subconscious work on you. Make an emotion. Be sketchy and get ready to change, evolve, put things down and start again. And less but better, be brief. So if you're a designer or a creative person, I think this framework can be applied to your day-to-day work. I just framed it for a UXer, of course. But I think this can still be applied to your mindset and workflows. The thing is that this framework is just a beginning. I am sure there is a lot of stuff to learn from writing, And I thought that Hemingway was a great starting point. So now, actually, going back to the beginning of this presentation, I thought that maybe the name of this presentation is not Hemingway on writing, but it is Hemingway on writing and UX. Or actually, no, it's Hemingway on writing, UX, and any other creative process, any creative process. Thank you. Should I move?
No, it's great. Thank you very much. Questions? Elizabeth.
There's a story about something Hemingway said. It may be apocryphal, but I think it's relevant to UX anyway. And that is, someone asked him how you write a novel, and he said, first you defrost the refrigerator.
Okay.
And I was wondering if you know if he really said that, and what you think about its applicability to UX, even if it's apocryphal.
Well, to be honest with you, I don't know if that quote actually. Later on, if you want, I can give you, well, actually, we have the name of the book that I used over there, actually. And as I said to you, for me, it was a framework, actually. Because the thing is, his publisher kind of like used, well, I mean, if I may say so, the art in this book is on the publisher. Because he put together all of those quotes that really talk about, the art of writing, and what processes Hemingway used. And in some of the parts of the book, he even took letters from people to Hemingway and Hemingway to people, in which he tells them, well, this is how I do things. Obviously in his style, because he's not gonna tell you should do A, B, and C. Obviously, it's Hemingway.
So I'm thinking about the value of procrastination. This is related to something you said earlier about being stuck and letting your unconscious work on it. And so doing something else on purpose while you let your unconscious work on it, I think is what the point was about defrosting the refrigerator.
Ah, okay.
So it's not just procrastination, it's getting your mind out of the way.
Okay, now it makes sense in my head. Exactly, yes.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, well, I'm going to tell you a factoid about Ernest Hemingway, because I've been to his house in Key West. And it's to do with cats, so it's very internet related. Okay, you go to his house has got loads of cats everywhere. Not dogs, cats, it's cats now. And it's just a weird place. And the other thing that is quite interesting about the guy is that he had a swimming pool in his house, which he annoyingly spent the last dime on, because that dime is in the ground. And he didn't want to basically build a swimming pool, because he was saying to his wife at the time, why do we need to build a swimming pool when we have this ocean that is just there, because his house is right by the ocean. And also in his house as well, in his garden, he had a boxing ring. He's really, truly, absolutely a very interesting human being. So, you know, it's great to hear someone kind of talk about someone who is also a Nobel Prize winner as well. So pretty cool. But please put your hands together for David. Let's talk.
Thank you.